So I'm going to tweet it right now, FYI to everyone, via the MicroProfile handle, clearly. So make sure to find it in the tweet.
Okay, so we should have, we should be recording here. And can someone verify I lost my window?
Yep, it's working.
Okay, thank you very much. I apologize for interrupting. Edwin, go ahead.
No problem. Okay, so we have created this milestone 3.3, sorry for my English, in the MicroProfile umbrella project. So we can at least see and accumulate all the changes there. So I think that's a very neat thing that we introduced last time. But now we are just extracting from the discussions on the mailing lists and the details in the GitHub items to really see if we are not having or seeing any blockers or problems or something that we're missing in the Planet 3.3 release, because there's some discussion, of course, about the adoption of the Jakarta EE artifacts. And there's also something going on, maybe it's an agenda point, but REST client having to maybe release a Java E7 based version. So we're kind of investigating what we have to do and hope to get everything straightened out with you guys on the call here. So I suggest that we go over the specification that as John is summing up now in the notes.
Which one did you want me to be on?
Yeah, let's start with config, I guess.
Well, did you want me to be on the milestone screen, or did you want me to be here on the live hangout?
I think the note screen is perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, config is fine. So we do plan to do a config 1.4 release, and the same thing applied to fault tolerance. And notice the config, we need to change the dependency on CDI from the scope compile to be provided, so that MicroProfile 3.3 can pull in Jakarta without messing around the class path JS.
Okay, so config 1.4. One thing I noticed is I didn't see a candidate release, so you have one.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
no problem, but yeah, that's what we wanted to ask as well, of course. So, yeah. So, Emily, is there or will there be a release candidate available in time to check the details?
Yeah, is in the here release date is kind of release due is February 11th, you say, right? So we're hoping to release at like in January time. Obviously, we haven't done any milestone releases as yet. I think in the next couple of weeks, just finalize all the content, like the issues and etc., and try to do a release in January. And then it's the kind of final release is February 11th. Should be okay.
Okay, so no problems there. That's nice.
Mm-hmm. So same thing for fault tolerance. Actually, today we had a meeting and on fault tolerance, and we try to do all the issues we plan to do for the fault tolerance to one in this week and next week. So hopefully we will, by the end of next week, we can do a release candidate.
Okay, cool.
So I have a question about that. I noticed there's, you released wait, was it fault tolerance or metrics? No, I think it was a fault tolerance. We were just having that discussion in the Google group, a 2.0.1.
Oh, 2.0.3. You mean patch release? The macro release. Yeah, that's on the different branch. That's I replied to your email already. So basically, it's nothing. It's no user impact whatsoever. Just the performance improvement for the tests. we can carry on the mailing list if you have any further questions and etc. Just
Okay.
shoot an email.
Okay, sorry. I went through and I was muting people, and I guess it was Emily that had the background noise. So I just as a heads up, I muted some folks.
Yep, I noticed that. Yeah, and it was Emily.
Yeah. All right. So then moving on to Health 2.2. Martin, can you tell me something on the progress there?
Yeah, there is nothing much more I can add. Basically, we are going to release hopefully next week, first RC.
All right. So about going to metrics next.
So for metrics, we're working on the, I guess, our 2.3, and we have a couple of significant changes that are still just closing off. So one is trying to add metrics for JAX-RS, and another is adding our simple timer. So we are trying to close out some discussion online for the simple timer, which we'd like to do the simple timer and finish that off before we get the last stuff done for JAX-RS, which would actually use the simple timer. So the net of all that is basically we've got the code for the stuff, but at least for the changes that we're trying to do for the spec, and we still have some work to do on the TCK for the JAX-RS side. So I think we're probably a week to 2 weeks from our RC.
Right. So that's just work in progress. If I
it is, yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 to 3 weeks from
I think
our.
I'd say 1 to 2 weeks. So probably 2 is my best guess for RC. Which is that in line with what we're trying to get? Because I see February 11th for component releases due, so that would put us to I guess the 21st for the RC, which I think would get us okay for February 11th for a component release.
Yeah, it's still
There's
doable,
no
right?
issues.
So.
By the way, we need to create a release plan. I think is as soon as possible in the Eclipse for all the releases, for all the component releases.
Yeah. Yes.
I have a question about this. Isn't that this a part of the writing the release plan? Isn't that a part of the wiki where it is immediately added into the, not the PR, but the main area where we're working? We have everything under Git, and we continue to make this across different things. I thought we decided last year that we will just use one side, and that will be a copy pretty much of the blog announcement. So I don't understand what Emily means with the release plan when.
No.
This is the release plan right here.
This is
In fact, we're missing MicroProfile 3.3 even. I think that one's on me. I need to do that.
Mm-hmm. So, go ahead.
Edwin, I was just going to say that Edwin doesn't yet have commit rights to be able to update this, so I have to do this. So I'll do this after the meeting. I'll create the MicroProfile 3.3.
Oh, okay. So then we were talking about this document.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll see each spec has to have an entry. So every spec that plans on updating a feature release should actually do this. So a dot release or higher.
Yeah.
So can someone, while we're going through the meeting here, can someone check to see if any of these actually have a release plan defined? And if not, create a bullet for each one and link to somebody with that spec, with like an action item. So like create a comment and assign a person to it. That would be awesome.
Huge +1, John.
Yeah, good idea. So maybe in the meantime, we can continue and go through maybe OpenAPI. Is anybody online for OpenAPI that can provide some progress? No.
Is there a new, sorry, so are you looking at this from a feature perspective or?
Yeah, like the ones we already summed up. So if there's anything that is still in progress and when the release candidate will be on.
So,
if any.
you know what I think about this? If we don't have anyone in the API project itself, we can check the minutes really quickly. They are linked and the upper, in the part in these minutes, and we can just quickly check there. If there are no updates, that means that nothing has been done, because every project needs to be using the minutes. And if they do not, then we must send a message to the forum and say, if you're not, if working on any specific extension and you are not caring enough to provide the minutes, then we have a problem that we are working in a vacuum environment. This needs to be tackled, because we cannot be in a community in the Hangout wondering about stuff. We should already know that there is an update. It should be sent to the forum, even if it's 2 sentences. And that was my perspective on this.
Yeah, so I cannot disagree on that, but yeah, I'm trying to make the best of it. So yeah.
I know, and we just need to do better, because we're seeing the struggle, and the struggle means that we need to adjust something here. So what do we do? Do we check the minutes, and do we decide to do so right now, or do we send a message to the forum? And there are 17 people and these 7 microprofilers in this call. What do you think? Because I have an idea, and the idea and the suggestion, but what are about others? Maybe there is a better solution. Crickets? Oh my gosh, guys.
No, well, I mean, part of, I think, what the release leads need to do, so that's myself and Edwin, is crack the whip a little bit, right? Go and track this stuff, and if we don't see progress, start sending emails. I mean, it's a very gentle whip. We're really nice people.
Yeah, we try to be, at least. Yeah, I see in the 1.4 milestone something summed up, but
sorry, for which spec are you talking about?
Sorry, OpenTracing 1.4 has summed up some changes in the milestone.
Oh, I thought I had somewhere. Okay, I'm all screwed up on my. You keep going. I'll try and follow here with the.
Maybe I can post a link here.
Yeah.
I'm working on 2 computers as well. So somebody can please format that, but that's for the OpenTracing. What's apparently planned in their milestone 1.4 for the MicroProfile 3.3.
Sorry, where did you paste that? I don't see it in the chat.
In the minutes.
In the minutes, sorry.
Just below the metrics.
Sorry, I'm also running into a slow computer problem here. Okay, I see it
There
now.
it is, yeah. So to crack the whip, we need to have some updates from open tracing, what's in the milestone and how far they are with the work. So
Okay, next. You're on mute, Edwin, I think.
so I think JWT can be next. So anybody on that can provide some insights?
Is there actually anything going on there?
I'm just looking.
Okay.
So there is no milestone available, which could mean there is no changes, of course. So.
I know Sergey was trying to kind of restart work on the JWT after the Christmas break, but I think he's actually still on leave for another week or two. So I don't think they're intending to have a release for this platform.
Yeah.
This was mentioned by Martin from Red Hat last year in the architectural call and then in the community call that we never got to it. But while we're working on this release, I think those active should go into closing the issues or the PRs. They are still open from 2017, 18. We should decide what is the date where some of us will go in there and just close them, because most of the PRs are not assigned to anyone. Even the one that creates it might not get the notifications given the time. We have a new infra that will enable us to add new contributors that are not committers. But before we do anything on that sense, we need to clean up and cut the debt via the issues that we have currently happening. It seems to me that this release enables us to cut the debt in the PRs. And if we are not smart enough to do it now while working on this, then when? Wow, am I so right that no one else has a say after I say something? Wow, you guys, really?
Yeah, but my screens were kind of messed up. I tried to switch back to, how it's called? Zoom. Sorry.
No, it's good.
So are we saying, I'm a little confused here. Are we saying that open tracing is going to have a dot release for 3.3?
I guess so, because they've planned work in the 1.4 milestone.
Actually,
that is
in the past, you know, we when we plan this umbrella release, we opt in. Basically, is
See, I'm looking for, where is it? Okay, this is what I was looking for. Okay.
Yeah, I'm typing along.
sorry.
Yeah.
It is designed to be used.
Yeah, I'm not aware of open tracing planning a release, simply because I think it was decided that it made more sense to do a 2.0 of open tracing for June that had the update to
the open tracing API
dependency, which was a breaking change, but then at the same time remove it from the platform.
Yep.
The other
Yeah.
thing is the other thing is in the past
It's
when
not
we
just me, right?
individual
Emily,
No,
you
that
came
was-
across like some type of instrument there, a string instrument.
Can you
It's
hear me
true.
okay?
No, we cannot.
Sometimes we can, but sometimes we can't. Try again.
Emily, could you please repeat what you were just saying?
I think I got a very unstable internet connection. Anyway, so I'm trying to say is in the past, like each spec, component spec, basically is kind of asked to be included. Basically, the umbrella release is saying, oh, okay, our release train is going to depart in February, and then like a component spec say, okay, I would like to get on. It's not like the umbrella release train said, okay, do you want to get on? Do you want to, this one get on? I think this is the create a lot more kind of thing. I think it's a kind of unnecessary kind of broken communication. So basically, is we are trying to reach out. It's not like the individual component release trying to get in touch with the component release.
Yeah, with the platform. I think that kind of gets back to what Amelia was talking about, is that if there isn't communication that is visible to us that they're trying to get into the next release, then I don't know, why should we be pursuing them? They should be trying to communicate with us.
Plus
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if they have no
exactly.
changes, yeah.
Yeah, and then we spend a lot of time just asking people, and then we couldn't get a hold of them. I think we should move on. We already kind of nearly halfway through the meeting.
Yeah.
The joys of new
Yes.
processes.
Yeah.
Well, it's a new year and most of us have been off. So let's be kind, but also notice that this continues to be an issue. We communicate, some of us communicate, and we continue to be vacuum and contact someone privately. That doesn't work. And if you're part of if each one of us chooses to continue to enable that person to be contacted privately and expect to get some results, then it is our fault for being that kind of enabler. And that doesn't work in open source. So pay attention to what we do and how we do things. It's my recommendation, because we are the problem if this continues. We, the ones that show up in this call, or use the forum instead of private messaging.
Yeah, and of course messaging at all, because if you have no changes, even notifying everybody you have no changes is valuable.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see a few TBDs here. Still.
Yeah, that can change. I just place them as placeholders that can now be filled or filled later outside of this call when we chase people. But yeah, just get this list straight and filled in so that we can have a big overview, and then go to the next topics, I guess. Because yeah, I think determining what's going to be in the release can also be done outside this call, of course. So just sending the message that we need communication on what is going to be released, not accumulating that information inside this call, is valuable, I guess.
So I do have a question here. Ken, is this still a topic here on shifting the cadence?
Don't even raise that now. There's too many other things to talk about.
That's what I wanted to know. Okay, Amelia, is there anything here that you wanted to Ed?
To where? Sorry, I was writing something in the minutes.
It's on-
I'm happy with the minutes. I'm being very, like, taking your feedback. What is going on?
Thank you. You have a couple of things. Somebody added some bullets here. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
who
think-
added these.
I think there were some of the minutes.
Oh, that's the minutes themselves. Okay, all right.
I don't have to add anything else. I have said the two things. Communication
Okay.
and PR debt. And this has been a topic and we just need to own it in this release.
Okay. This is kind of the end. I apologize. I keep moving around on the screen. I know. Okay, MicroProfile 3.3. This is still really part of the MicroProfile 3.3 discussion here.
Yeah.
This is Andy. Do you mind if I talk about this now?
Go for
sure,
it.
Please.
Cool. So the issue, and I brought this up in the Google groups, was that MicroProfile REST Client 1X currently supports Java EE7 technologies. And so it's not an issue. It works just fine in Java EE8. But once we switch to Jakarta EE8, there is no Jakarta EE7 equivalent. So it's essentially a breaking change for users of MicroProfile REST Client standalone. So I guess the advice I'm looking for is if we want to ship anything different in REST Client in the MicroProfile 3.3 release, what do we want to do? Because I think that if we ship with Jakarta EE8 technologies, it's essentially, we essentially need to call it REST Client 2.0, which tells the community it's a breaking change. Even though for anybody that's using MP umbrella spec technologies, it won't be a breaking change because they were using Java EE8, now they're using Jakarta EE8, which should be identical. Or do we just not want to ship it in this release and then ship it in the next, in the June release where we can bring in breaking changes? Or is there any other ideas as far as what we could do with REST Client?
So Andy, just a quick question. I'm still not entirely sure I get that it's a breaking change. So currently it's depending on CDI from EE7. And if we switch that to use CDI from Jakarta EE8, so long as the dependencies are provided and we're not using any new APIs from CDI that didn't exist in prior versions, shouldn't it still work on Java EE7 for standalone usage?
I think, yeah, I can't say 100% that things will be broken for customers, but there's a chance, and we've already been burned with the 1.3 release where we made a default where something wasn't defined and now it is, and that did cause breaks for customers. So I'm very sensitive about that, and that's kind of what that's kind of what's leading me towards calling it a breaking change, because a user today could run in, like, they could pull in an Apache CXF implementation, run it in Tomcat with JAX-RS 2.0 and Servlet 3.1, and they would just work just fine. When they move to 2.0, to me, it's a very large question mark, because they're going to have, because now, unless they also move up Servlet API levels and JAX-RS API levels, I just don't know if things are gonna work or not, or if there's going to be behavior changes that could break.
Are we confusing implementation detail with specification level detail?
Yeah.
I think what Andy brought up is like
Sorry, Emily, we cannot hear you.
previous, and so that means it works with the CDI 1.2. Now it's dependent on the CDI 2.0.
You broke up.
Doesn't work with the CDI.
You had to start from the beginning because you broke up.
Oh, she's still breaking up.
Still not working, Emily.
Yeah.
Emily, Emily, we cannot hear you at all. It's terrible.
Well, we hear 50%.
Okay, I will write down in the chat.
Okay, so in the meantime, Andy, I've got a question then. So for your standalone REST client as it is today, do you claim support for Java EE8?
Yes.
Okay, then we should be able to declare support for Jakarta EE8.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's a support issue. I'm saying that like the right now the APIs depend on CDI. Well, optionally, I guess for CDI 1.2, but they depend on JAX-RS 2.0 and Servlet 3.1, and those dependencies are what's changing. So my understanding of semantic versioning says that's a major change. That'd be like, you know, if the next version of JAX-RS depended on or I don't know, if you know, if we depended on a new version of Spring or a new version of something else, it's a major change, because it would require the user to also upgrade that dependency.
Yeah, but since we have all those dependencies as provided, then that should be no problem, even if we stay with the old versions of CDI 1.2.
Right, but we can't guarantee that the users are using provided scope, right?
Yeah, but in your metrics implementation, it is. So they are not pulling in any dependencies you have defined.
I'm still really confused about the question. So, you know, maybe can you start from the one more time from the top, Andy?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess the way the way I look at it is there's a you know, you've got our POM XML, and we depend on for the API depends on JAX-RS 2.0 and Servlet 3.1, and that allows a user to run that, and you know, for example, in a Tomcat environment or a Jetty environment, pulling in those APIs directly into with their app, right? So they could run an MP REST client without, you know, just with those Java EE7 dependencies. When we advance to
before we move on from that, just so we can ask questions about that, are those dependencies marked provided, or are they getting? Does the user have to explicitly put those dependencies there?
Good question. I believe they have to put them there. Let me double check.
The CDI API is provided scope in the REST client POM. That helps. Same with annotation API. They're all provided. Well, apart from the test ones, they're all provided.
Okay, so the REST client POM itself does not explicitly bring in anything EE7 related. A user would have to do that themselves.
The API doesn't specify a scope for any of its dependencies, except for MicroProfile config, which is provided. That's in the API, but that. Let me look at the parent as well. Yeah, so in the parent, then CDI is provided. Inject, JAX-RS are all not provided.
They're not provided.
Correct.
Okay, so.
I think that's more from omission than rather deliberate choice.
I agree.
Okay, all right. So they're explicitly getting set to EE7 levels.
Right.
For JAX-RS. Is that
for JAX-RS and Jakarta Inject API.
Okay. So if we were to change them, then that is a breaking change. But obviously, anybody who's using them in an 8 container has already excluded them.
Correct.
Not necessarily excluded, but they are overridden by the newer version, by the resolving of the dependencies, because he sees 8 instead of 7. But that can,
Yeah.
but that is then an issue with Jakarta because that's not.
Depending on how they put it together. I mean, there are other implementations of those APIs other than the Jakarta ones, right? So they may have just pulled them out. For example, older versions of CXF don't use any of the Jakarta dependencies. They use the Geronimo versions of those jars. So they would have excluded them. Okay. The question is then, how do we want to deal with the fact that those should have been marked provided and they weren't? That's really the topic, isn't it?
Right.
Well, actually,
yeah.
So actually, I think we had a long mailing list discussion on this. The first thing I think is kind of we should fix to provide it, the scope to be provided. The other thing is that we should look at what Kevin suggested, maybe is kind of just pull in Jakarta, like Jakarta CDI and Jakarta JAX-RS and etc. without needing bothering with component release update. Maybe this kind of another option.
What was that second option?
The second option is just pull in the Jakarta EE on the umbrella level without doing anything else for the component level.
What does pulling in mean? Means we're gonna
pulling in means
basically the platform POM that gets released would have Jakarta E dependencies, but every spec would still have Java E 7 or 8 dependencies.
Yeah, except for the ones that are making, updates like our config and fault tolerance. But
yeah, and also for the specs, haven't specified scope provided. They need to do a manual release. I think there's just 2 specs, if I can remember correctly. Is we check that.
Sorry,
missed the last part.
A little bit there again, Emily.
Yeah, so if I may click the whip here a little bit, we have if I look at the agenda, not to cut discussion short, but there are some other topics.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I was about to bring that up.
There is some 20-minute dedicated working group proposal discussion planned, and something else that's also alignment of Jakarta E with MP 3.3. So are we going to keep with this discussion, or are we going to change the topic and discussion will continue on the mailing group? Or
well, we do need to figure out what we're doing for 3.3 in terms of, are we updating anything to Jakarta E8, or is it waiting for June? And if we are updating, what's updating?
Yeah, and I would just want to really quickly say at the very top of that conversation is that if we're going to have non-provided dependencies, it opens up a really big can of worms, because some of these specifications, because there are alternate implementations of these specifications. For example, at Apache, we have implementations of the specification API jars. And then there are some very unclean specifications which still haven't been dealt with, such as Java Mail activation, that are implementations. And there are also alternate implementations of those in Apache. So we have alternate implementations of Java Mail and activation and things like that. And so if MicroProfile is going to have a non-provided dependency on Jakarta implementations, well, it raises a neutrality question, because they're not actually API jars always, they're implementations. And, so it's a trick.
Yeah, so I think we definitely need stuff in provided scope, and we need to fix that. One question I've just thought of in terms of the view of just updating them to provided and doing EE8 at the umbrella, doesn't marking things provided that were compiled consider it a breaking change, because it means that dependencies that were included are no longer there anymore?
Correct.
So I think that in itself kind of means we have to push all this Jakarta E8 update to the 4 release in June, because everything's
was
going
gonna
to
be my
need a break
comment.
and change release.
Yes. Ken and David, when I saw the thread that Andy has going and a few others and Emily joined, I was thinking at the beginning when we had multiple talks about making Jakarta EE8's release be a minor part of MicroProfile and the level of how we release it, I thought it would be no problem. But then now, after we continue to see and read the thread, which should be added into this conversation in the minutes, and also what it means, now it seems that we just need to make Jakarta EE8 compliance with MicroProfile be the June release, because there are so many things we do not know, and it's still, as David mentioned, heavy. Like it needs clear up.
When we do the 4.0 release, I'll just quickly. So when we do the 4.0 release, we're going to want to make sure that even at the umbrella level, everything is provided. So that stuff can continue to be used in future Jakarta releases, right?
So
Yes,
what do we think
we're
about
going to
it?
want everything provided everywhere.
Mm-hmm. So how, are we deciding right now, or do we need 2 extra weeks? I don't think we have 2 extra weeks.
Well, let's give Kevin a little chance to speak up because he tried.
Kevin, go ahead.
Cut him off.
Yeah, that's okay. The thing that bothers me, and maybe this is just because we messed up on our POM files, but it bothers me that that MicroProfile has to go to a major release to support Jakarta EE8, when that should have been just a no-brainer update. You know, we've done it with all these other application servers with no additional updates. And why does MicroProfile have to go to a breaking change? And that's the thing that is bothering me.
It bothers me so much.
Our own fault to a certain extent.
Go ahead, Ken.
I was just going to say, one is it's our fault that we had dependencies that were not in provided, which complicates things. And then it's our rules saying that changing that would cause a breaking change release. So we can certainly provide exceptions up the wazoo to ourselves and just do it now anyway and break everything in a non-breaking release, but then that would set a bad precedent.
Yes, we cannot do that.
But is it going to actually break anything though? Because all of the dependencies are on EE spec APIs. So any platform that is going to be E7 or 8 compliant will already have those dependencies in their main class path. So yes, what would be bundled in a WAR file would no longer be. The class path is essentially still the same. And so it wouldn't actually break anything. No code would actually break it. At the moment, you've got duplicate classes, removed and provided. Sorry.
You're thinking about the runtime, and you have to think about the step before that. The person who has an application that has that dependency in their POM file, and they go to build their app to deploy it on that server where everything is provided. But in their build, there is an explicit transitive dependency from MP REST client to JXRS. So they don't need to have a dependency on JXRS to compile. It will their code that uses JXRS will compile. If that was where they were getting their JXRS dependency from, transitively through the REST client,
I see.
And then it's removed, all their code breaks.
I get you. Yeah, yes. So if they didn't have an explicit dependency on JXRS, they just inherited it via the transitive. Right. That's the problem. Yeah. Okay.
You know, and as Ken says, we could just go ahead and say, meh, and do it anyway.
How do you spell that?
MEH with a period.
Okay.
Oh, it's so cute. It's so cute. Like,
and a snarky emoji at the end.
Okay.
I love it.
And just a time check. We got 12 minutes, and we haven't talked about the working groups yet. So this is more important, in my opinion, right now because we have to get meetings out the door.
Yeah. Well, so what I would say is the last time we talked about the working groups, it was at the very tail end, and we didn't really leave enough time for conversation. If we do that again, we're not going to get good conversation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know how people feel.
Punt it for the next call.
Well, I was going to say, like right now, I would say we've probably reached a point where we can agree that it doesn't make sense to
Before I try
update
to-
to Jakarta EE8 for 3.3, and we need to push it to 4.
I agree. +1.
We could do it for everything but REST client, but that doesn't help.
Uh,
So there's other specs
actually,
that are provided that would need fixing as
yeah,
well.
The
yeah.
other
So
specs that are not provided.
Yep. There's at
so
least maybe
there's
3 others.
yeah, there's about 2 more nothing provided. So basically, we need to fix that. I think we have 2 options. One option is kind of just do the umbrella release level to pull in Jakarta EE, and then fix the scope for the specs that haven't done it right. The other one is do a 4.0 release. Basically, it's kind of we are kind of strict.
Well, we just said that we
you know-
couldn't do the first option because those specs with non-provided scopes would be a breaking change to fix that.
Also, are you not worried
Also
if we
on
put
the
in
umbrella
Jakarta?
level? Sorry,
If we
Philip.
sorry, if we pull in Jakarta on umbrella level, it means that MicroProfile depend on all of Jakarta, right? Or at least open it up to easily include APIs we actually don't depend on. We should
No.
actually explicitly pull in CDI, JAX-RS, JSON-P,
Yeah,
and JSON-B.
we do. Yeah, we don't put in the whole platform. We just
Okay.
refer to it that way.
Okay,
Which
sorry.
is another problem that we need to address at some point.
Yeah, that's one of my other items for today. We're not going to get to.
But in that umbrella POM, they are already always provided, no?
So may I ask you
I hope
something?
so. That was I want to answer. I want to hear the answer to Rudy's question because it's a good one.
Because then we can do it already for the umbrella POM, although that's maybe not the most likely thing to do, that we have 2 different things, but at least we can do that already.
So the dependencies on Jakarta EE related things in the umbrella POM, they're provided?
I guess, but I have to check.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of sure they are. So those are
I just
IL1.
took a look. They're not provided.
Yeah, there's no scope. So what does it default to?
Compile, which is a transitive dependency.
Yeah, okay, then it's not an option.
Yeah, we definitely want to fix this, because it doesn't just prevent it doesn't just make a confusion with the, jars that are /API/implementation, but it also prevents people from just sort of magically using this on future Jakarta EE versions, right? And there are future versions that are backwards compatible are still not compatible because we've backdated you and hard-coded you to a version in the past. And so, we're going to continue to have this problem of we can't magically use the next version of Jakarta because we've pinned ourselves to one old version. And so we want to make sure even at the umbrella level, we're always in a provided state. The dependencies between MicroProfile specifications, we probably have to have a conversation on that as well.
Okay, so I fully agree with all the arguments here. I'm just kind of wondering, when we moved to Java EE8, we did the same thing. So updating to Jakarta EE8 at the platform level is no worse than what we did for Java EE8.
Well, that I
Except
don't
learning from our
understand.
mistakes.
Go ahead, Ken.
I was just going to say, except learning from our mistakes, because I feel like clearly looking back, that was probably not the right way to go about it because we had issues with provided scopes back then too.
Okay.
But also there's not a Maven dependency on Java 8, is there? It's just like there's no library that you bring in that says Java 8.
No, Java EE8. So when we upgraded from Java EE7 to Java EE8. So that's how we were able to allow REST client to work with both versions of Java EE. So That's where I was just kind of pointing out, well, this is no worse than what we did for Java EE8. But like Ken said, yeah, we're just kind of pushing the problem out again.
Yeah. Also, I think that really reinforces Ken's larger point, which is it sets a bad precedent. And so saying we did it before, we should be able to do it again, I think really, really highlights Ken's point.
But then we should identify what we need to do beforehand to prevent these issues. But that might take us 1 or 2 releases, right? But then have a solid base to prevent all the issues that we're seeing now in the future.
So here's a question. So it's very clear we don't want to have hardwired dependencies on Java EE, Jakarta EE versions. Now the topic is between specifications themselves, and then here's a scenario. Let's say JWT has a hard-coded dependency on mpconfig version 1 whatever, say 1.1, just making a number off the top of my head. Config moves forward, JWT does not, and now we're sort of relying on Maven's ability to suss it out.
Would that not also be marked provided?
Well, that's the question. Is it, if are provided dependencies mandatory also between MicroProfile specifications?
And the only thing is does Maven actually work it out, or I know at one point it used to have like a range system where you put square brackets and it gave you a range of numbers or whatever, but I didn't think it just warned you that you got an inconsistent version. You had to then specify the exact version you wanted as in your own POM.
It works it out, sometimes not in the way you would think. Sometimes it gives you both the lowest version.
It's nearest ancestor with the newest version. It's very bizarre when you debug through what it's doing. Sometimes it does things you don't expect.
And recompiling stuff of 2 months old can bring in an entirely new version of dependencies, which is also not very reliable.
Yeah. At the umbrella level, that makes sense to be able to say, hey, all versions for all the stuff is X, and at the umbrella level, we could even have at the umbrella level, the MicroProfile specification versions not marked provided, Jakarta EE stuff and other external dependencies marked provided. That could potentially work. But in order for that to happen, the specifications themselves and their dependencies between each other would have to be marked provided, so that the Jakarta umbrella could then cement the versions for all the the MicroProfile umbrella could cement the versions for all the MicroProfile stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of lessons I'm getting out of this. One is we probably need to reopen the parent POM debate for specs, so that we can define some of this stuff in a parent, and then there's no risk of new specs inadvertently adding things in that aren't in the right scopes and things like that.
Yep.
And the other is that from the architecture group, we need to actually come up with like concrete steps and things to like have of what people need to do and be aware of to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes again.
Yeah, so that parent POM would not be a replacement for the umbrella POM, correct?
I think there's been talk in the past of potentially using the one POM as both. I don't know how practical that is, but it certainly wouldn't replace the BOM from MicroProfile platform. No.
Okay, yeah, because the parent POM, if it had, well, the problem with parent palms having the umbrella version for everything is that you then still have to release, say, MP-JWT, even though nothing has happened there, because it needs to use the parent palm that has the new versions. So literally all specifications have to get released every time.
Because
Or
the
the
parent
parent
palm
palm
gets
isn't.
released.
What's that?
Because the parent palm itself gets released in that version, so all the child things
Right.
need to pick up that new version of that parent palm.
Right. So
Well, maybe we don't need a parent palm. Maybe we just need a parent, not a parent. Sorry, a dependency palm
So
that we pull in.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it
I'm going to
is-
interrupt here. I apologize. We got 1 minute left, and so what's the answer for the 3.3 release?
We will skip Jakarta E8. It will skip Jakarta E8.
Yeah.
Jakarta E8 will be a major release with 4.
yeah, we're just punting to June anyway, so it's
Yeah,
not that terrible.
Also, everyone has.
So let's get that in the release notes then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one thing is, there are a few topics that didn't get to
I'm sorry, in the meeting minutes.
Yeah, we will put them for next call. And I just added for the working group conversation, the stats of what we have today. So that conversation can happen offline. We have PRs, we have the thread. This is just a nice thing. I think 3.3 release is much more important conversation to this call.
Right. So I want to add something else. Like if we don't do the Jakarta E8 alignment for the specs that are going to be released, like for tolerance health check, I think they already done the Jakarta E alignment. I think this change needs to be undone. So you should undo all these changes.
Yep.
A message needs to,
Well,
we will send the
actually-
message to the forum. The message to the forum needs to be sent with the minutes of today. And I recommend that either someone from this call volunteers to send that to the forum. We have 1,000 and close to 1,200 microprofilers there. It's so rare that someone will miss it.
Yeah. So
It's already.
If they marked it provided, it should actually not be an issue, right?
Yeah, the
Some
problem is
of them not.
provided is a breaking change for the specs.
Edwin, are you okay to send the minutes with the decision to the forum?
The decision?
Yeah, there is a decision about MicroProfile 3.3. We are someone, I think John or Kevin are writing it right now. Is it okay
Yeah,
for
I
you
see.
to send it to the forum? Send
Yeah,
the
I can do
minutes and then just copy paste one sentence.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
The thing that each of these components, they may reevaluate, and they may say, okay, if we're not doing Jakarta E8, then maybe we'll just hold off on a point release as well. So that's fair for them to reevaluate that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly. Re-review their plan. Okay, sounds good.
So,
Copy paste word
so what
down.
is important is that 3.3 has to include all the fixes where we fix the dependency scopes.
Nope. Can't fix it in 3.3.
By the way, our
I
wiki
see,
about our wiki about the versioning, semantic versioning, we should make sure it's up to date. Basically, it's like when the change the dependency scope from compile to be like provided, that's also break changes and etc. I will modify.
Okay.
I will update the semantic versioning wiki.
Thanks.
Okay.
John, what
So-
are you?
I'm here. Hold on. The video was just killing my my CPU here. That's a problem with driving 3 monitors. So I lost my train of thought. I was gonna say something. We're at past the top of the hour. So yeah, this is a relatively big change. We're gonna need to open up issues for each of the specs that do not use provided and request they use provided. So
Well, we need to make it clear that's for 4.0 and not for 3.3.
for 4.0, yes. Very good point.
Can
So
can that be written in the session as part of
Just let
something?
John finish.
yeah, so someone's got to take that AI.
I mentioned I will document on the semantic versioning wiki. Maybe it's a kind of highlight that line in the meeting minutes, and then I think is the other one is going to send to the Google group, right? If I remember, if I heard all correctly.
I can create issues
think,
with a couple of specs that need to fix their provided, and I'll create a if there isn't one already, an MP 4.0 epic milestone on GitHub, so that I can then link them into that, so that we know how that's tied in.
And at the platform level, we should probably create a milestone release that points to each of those as well.
That's what I just said.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said it at the spec level. You were going to do it at the component
I'm
level.
not creating milestones for specs, but I'll do it
Okay.
at the platform level.
I got you now. Sorry, I misheard that.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay. So big decision today. Yeah, let's get the word out to the community and within our respective organizations as well. So I guess with that, sorry we didn't get to the working group discussion.
John, just before we go, do we need to consider having a special meeting next week to just talk about working group?
That is an option. We
Otherwise, I think we
reserve
might
the
get
off
overtaken
week.
by issues every time.
It might be.
Sorry, you guys, but my computer died outside. It's so hot, amazingly. There is no extra, there shouldn't be extra, let's do a special call. If we're not talking in the forum, if we're not talking in the PRs, we have a problem. We shouldn't do anything special for a working group. We should be able to keep up with the design and the current timeline. And if we are not, we extend it.
If you want to do that, you got to get your computer out.
My computer is there.
Okay, I'll let David and Amelia figure this out.
Seriously.
Let's make sure it's the top of the hour for the next or already scheduled call, so we get the most attendance as possible.
Mm-hmm.
We could do that.
Well, I don't know that we can have an effective discussion in 1 hour, but the real issue in my mind is we have to have a mechanism that we're going to make a vote or a decision process.
Sure.
Yeah. That's the one thing we haven't discussed yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, let's talk about all of that on the next one and make sure it won't be the decision, but it will be. Well, let's bring it all up and we'll have it at the top of the next regular scheduled call.
Yeah, that's better. Kisses everyone. Feliz 2020.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, I do worry about pushing it out 2 weeks. We did set a soft target to be the end of February, so I guess we still do have time, but it'll push us halfway through January, or actually 3/4 of the way through January.
Do we want to schedule some more meetings in that time? So that way we're not in an every 2 week situation.
Well, that's where we talk about doing the off weeks, right? Which we had, early on agreed that we would use for special occasions, special topics or guest speakers or whatever, right? And I think that this working group one is worth doing that. Not that we all want another meeting, but it would be something I think very focused that would get lots of participation, and lots of discussion going.
And dedication to the topic. So.
And dedication to the topic.
I don't think it's a bad idea, but yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, decision it is.
Okay. That
Okay.
would be for all of February?
What was that, David?
Would that be for all of February?
No, this is just to have a special meeting for next Tuesday.
Okay.
No.
And then we can discuss. And then we can discuss whether or not we want to have additional meetings, maybe.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for the. Wow, a lot of minutes today. Thank you, everyone,
have-
for taking notes.
When's our next architectural call? Or are we going to be stepping on that one?
No.
No, I don't think that's until like first week of Feb or something like that is the next one.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to create a meeting. I'll let everyone drop off. I'm going to create a meeting minute note here that we had a decision to have a one-off meeting next week, and I'll also add it to the calendar. So
Okay,
thanks,
good.
everyone.
Cool.
I know it's 10 minutes over. Great discussion over a pretty tough topic. We have a decision, and I will see everyone, if not next week, if you can't make next week, then at the next Hangout meeting.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Right,
Bye-bye.
thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, bye everyone.
Same bad time, same bad channel.